I read some new poems. I gave my hands the day off, and they couldn't wait to get out of the house. Heard the door slam behind them. Right went to the bookstore, left to the fair where it became webbed with cotton candy and got its fingers sucked. Right got lost in a volume of Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy and is twitching to write something. So much better for them to be away for the day. How much more mischief they would find at home where their owner, heart heavy as a bull's, longs to cup breasts and buttocks or trace the gentle curve of a neck. He sits in his chair and plots outrage, invents a project for each finger, or gives in to despair and wants a burning star to crucify each poem. Romantic. I'm one of maybe the final generation of them. I see this woman sitting outside that cafe with the New York Times and, well, something as simple as the curve of her neck sets me off. By the time I've walked a block, I've already made love to her in my head, and by the end of the next block, I've married her. Don't know a thing about her. Who knows? She could be poisoning her husband with antifreeze, sewing Nazi armbands, but I've got this little piece of radium or something down near my amygdala that flares up at the slightest breeze. Maybe I'm being selected out of our not too successful species. I mean, still thinking about her, I could step off the curb in front of that truck, now gearing up to get out of town. The Angel of Death, Part 3. She is here again with her little black car, wings folded and tucked under her sweater, her magenta hair, nose ring, black socks with little skulls. She is taking me for the usual morning ride. See, she says, how the fog hangs below Mount Sugarloaf and the tip appears bright in the sun. How the river resists the ice that crusts near the bank. How even in fog the colors persist, the leaves hanging on for one more day, another wind. It is not so bad, she says. What you have is the longer death, the dying, the composting of the soul. She drives me up the mountain and we stand overlooking the valley, the river a snake twisting to shake off the cold, the fields heavy with manure before the first snow. We let the wind carve us into stillness. I want you to get used to me, she says, so when I come for the last time, you won't be frightened. You've seen me before. I was there when you tried to keep a man from bleeding to death. I was there when you could not stand to live another day without the woman who broke you. She leads me back down the mountain, and then I'm alone and tasting the first rich coffee of the morning. I smell her perfume the rest of the day. Little Chi, Hill 41, June 1967, Quang Province. Little Chi sells homemade banana popsicles at the base of the hill out of the wooden panniers on his bike, dry ice smoking in the scorched noon, so good at 120 degrees. Charges 3 piastres or 1 military payment certificate he can sell on the black market. "Number 1 Marine," he says, and salutes. Then he pushes his bike up the long hill where the jungle thickens and sells them to the enemy. First cold day, and the leaves not yet turned. I stand looking backward at my life where there is a great city jeweled with moments. I made love in that house that was torn down and is now a parking lot. I took her up the mountain on the Kawasaki and the vibration from the bike made her come. I felt her writhing against me at 70 miles per hour, chasms on both sides of the road. These things will not happen again. My other face, my soul's face, looks ahead where winter lies waiting in the trees. How Nazis. How Nazis. The man in the driver's seat of the minivan is just short of backhanding his wife, but screams instead. The contractor towing a backhoe shouts at a man who has crossed against the light. A man leans on his horn because the woman in front of him is not turning fast enough. The weather is warm and their windows are open and we can hear everything. Once again, the indifferent machine is closing on the soft human flesh it feeds on. It is not 1930, and people are not yet cutting steaks from the draft horse that has fallen in the streets, are not yet rolling a wheelbarrow of Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread. At the factory, the boss rides a machinist until he quits, having no other job to go to. The machinist gets drunk on the way home, and his wife shouts at him, and he hits his wife, and the wife hits the daughter, and the daughter goes down the street where there is heroin. A man sits in his room all day with his demons and talks to them. They have been fouling their cages. They have been jeering at his dreams. He goes to the basement and loads his assault rifle, and then emerges from his cave, and you know the rest. The politicians scan the surface for the bubbles of rage coming up from below, sing their feral songs of blame and wrong, and create phalanxes of hate. They trot out the usual suspects, foreigners, people of color, homosexuals, artists, and anyone who presents in this batholith of a hate a vision that is indigestible by the machine, and whose songs do not rhyme with the hard bells being rung to rally legions. We are at the cusp of the eternal return one more time, and the momentum headed toward the cliff is terrifying. Those who do not join are dragged along. Here is where God might help, might step in, but does not. He stays in the shadows of the scaffolds being thrown up in every town square. How am I doing on time? You may have noticed how the right has hijacked Christianity, and the evangelicals have swung very far to the right. This is called Rood Shadow. Rood is Middle English for cross. And of course there's the pun. Rood Shadow. They get Jesus in a back room at the country club. Tell him, let's get you in some Armani, and could you step over there and wash your feet? Maybe we can get you a pedicure. See, we want you to be able to walk into our churches without upsetting all those folks in their Sunday best. We want you to fit in, grace the board meeting once in a while. And we want you to look good on TV. Got to do something about that coif. So when you tell all those liberal pervs to straighten up or hell's a-waitin', we want you to have authority. We want to market a version of you to our less educated folks that shoots lightning out your fingertips at homos and these bitches who want ownership of their own pussies. Because we need the votes, see? We want heaven on earth and Botox too. We want the eternal Barbies of the ass fuck come in the face. We want the holy star of the Mercedes hood ornament to rise on Christmas over the hall of Mammon. And don't get any ideas about fishes and loaves or kicking the money lenders out of the temple, because, well, you know, we've got the nails, we've got the tree. How am I doing? One more? Okay, all right. Return. Hafiz, let me understand you. Even when broken by love, when you think you'll die and are afraid you won't, or even when struck silly in the first weeks before you wake to see her with the glow worn off and know that, like you, she is a stranger. Even then, or in grieving the loss of her and the long longing after. In a heaven we have not yet eyes to know, our hearts are ripening, and it will all come back to us, children that we are and will be. Thank you.